Do you have the courage and strength a man needs in midlife?
I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family. It was just untenable. How am I going to get out of here? I'll join the army. There's nothing they can do. So I literally went and signed up and went and joined.
Who dares wins is the motto of the SAS, the Special Air Services Regiment. But what does it mean to dare when you're in midlife? This week's episode of Don't Let the Old Man In features Matt Bunker, an Australian Army veteran, Special Forces and Intelligence Captain. And we talk about what strength looks like in midlife.
But that all came crashing down. There was a lot of things that I hadn't dealt with from my childhood. There were some things that I hadn't really dealt with from my military service. And then when I didn't have a purpose, just kind of plodding along, everything kind of all came crashing down. And in late 2019, I had a pretty massive breakdown.
He went from commanding SAS teams to becoming a first-year nursing student, from being called Sir to being dismissed by instructors half his age. He's unflinchingly honest about the cost, midlife breakdown, a failed business, and why he chose purpose over prestige.
Here's Pod O'Sullivan with Don't Let the Old Man In, a podcast from the Wisdom Vault.
Let's start here, Matt.
Yep.
In 2012, you passed one of the world's hardest tests and joined the SAS. That's quite extraordinary. Take us through the moment of going through the program, wanting to quit, maybe joining it, etc. What's that like?
Well, let me give you a little bit of context first, right? I think 2012 was my second attempt at SAS selection. So my first attempt was in 2007, right? I pulled off that selection course, and it was during the happy wanderer phase of selection. Now, the happy wanderer phase of selection is you are out in the scrub navigating by yourself over a 5-day period. And over that 5-day period, you've got to get about 100 kilometres, right, to pass. And we were doing it in Lanceland, so sand dunes, up and down sand dunes all day, right? And I was sitting on this sand dune in Lanceland, and I could see the coast, right? And I could see this young family playing at the shoreline. And I just recently got engaged, and my wife and I, Christy, had talked about starting a family early, right? And so as I looked at this family, I sat down, and I was sitting down, and I thought to myself, is this really what I want to do, right? And these thoughts of doubt had started to creep into my mind. And it was at that point I was like, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to start a family. And so I made the decision to withdraw from that course in 2007, right? And so I can remember as soon as I made that decision, I took all the food out of my pack and just ate it all, right? So there was no turning back.
Right.
There's absolutely no turning back. I had to pull off because I didn't have any more food.
You burnt the ships.
I burnt the ships, yeah. And so I pulled off that course. And so there was a period of between 2007 and 2012 where I thought, shit, what have I done, right? And so
you were still in the military.
I was still in the military, right?
Were you still maintaining your fitness level?
To a certain extent, I broke my back as well in 2007 and had to have spinal surgery, right? So there was a period of having to physically recover. And then I had 2 children as well. There was that, I suppose, that loss of not knowing what it could have been, right? And so I decided that I wanted to give it another crack. But the thing is, when you pull off selection and you withdraw from yourself, you're not allowed to ever do it again. So I actually wrote a letter to the commanding officer outlining all my weaknesses, what my weaknesses were and how I addressed every single weakness and how I changed those weaknesses, right? There's a big lesson I learned out of this. And that I sent that letter off and I got a reply, and it was just an email, simply one line: Captain Bunker, you are good to try out for selection again. That was it, right?
Just to stop a second. Yeah. That's extraordinary what you just said.
Yeah.
Now, just to make sure for our listeners, give me the equivalent of the SAS in other forces around the world, so we know what that all is about.
So you've obviously got the British SAS. So the British SAS are split into kind of two different force elements. They've got their SAS and they've got their SBS, which is their Special Boat Service and their Special Air Service. We, as an SAS in Australia here, we do both, right? Well, we're combined. So we do our air and we do our boating in the same unit. If you go to somewhere like America, Then you've got the SEALs, right? Now there's different levels of SEALs. You've got a unit within the SEALs that as their tier one. It's one of their SEAL teams, right? These are the guys that went and captured and killed Osama. Then you've also got on the army side of them, you've got Delta Force. Now, you would have seen a lot of the movies around, Chuck Norris movies and all those types of things. So they're their tier one. That's where we fit in. We are, SAS in Australia is a tier one level special forces unit.
Okay, right.
Yep.
So that's positioning what you were about to go back into.
Yes.
You were applying to go back into it 5 years later. You had 2 young kids.
Yep.
I imagine for most listeners, when I think of the SAS or the SEALs or Delta, I'm thinking of a 25-year-old. I'm not thinking of a dad with 2 kids who had back surgery.
Yeah. So the actual average age of an SAS operator is about 30, right? 27 to 30.
Did I know that?
Yeah, and I think the reason why is because you have more lived experience to draw on, I suppose, when you're doing your training. It's not to say there aren't anomalies. There are younger guys within the unit as well that make it through and get through the training. But yeah, there's the average age is about that 27 to 30 mark. So
Okay.
and that was me. That was that age of me that I went for it the second time. So yeah,
I've heard Jocko Willink talk about the importance of humility
Yep.
in the SEALs and how it's kind of the opposite to what the movies would portray.
Yep.
You were writing a letter saying, here's my faults and here's how I've overcome them,
Yep.
is the epitome of vulnerability, I would have thought.
Yeah, and that is now one of my essential principles of leadership that I take on, and it's accepting failure, right? And when you learn to embrace failure and accept it, then you can continuously improve as both an individual, personally and professionally as well. So it's your ability to be able to accept criticism and learn from it, rather than hearing criticism and becoming defensive. A lot of people become defensive when they hear about their criticism. I made a very concerted effort from an early, so when I went for a selection again, that I lost that. That was now no longer a part of me. I needed to learn how to accept criticism, because I understood that if you take that information on board, turn your weaknesses into strengths, and you become a better person all round. Yeah.
So what was it like the second time around going for selection?
It was a lot easier. And it was a lot easier because I'd mentally prepared myself, right? The physical stuff, and I sat down and had a conversation with my wife. And I said, listen, over this next 13 or 14 weeks that I need to train up for SAS selection, I need to come first. And she's always been very, very supportive of me throughout my entire career, right? So it was an easy conversation to have with her. She's like, yeah, that's fine. Let's do it. This is something you really want to do. So let's go ahead and let's do it. So I had her in my corner whilst I was solely able to concentrate on my training, and she was able to look after the kids, right? 2 young girls. And so I think that is really a difference between guys that get in and don't get in. They prioritize themselves during that period of time, and their sole focus on it is preparing themselves both physically and mentally, right? And so that this time when I went on selection, yes, I was physically prepared, but I was mentally prepared as well. And how was I mentally prepared? Well, I was mentally prepared to deal with those thoughts of doubt that would creep in at those certain periods of time and then extinguish them, because I knew they would come, and I knew what my end state and my goal was. My goal was to get in, right? So, yeah.
What was driving that desire to be in there?
If I give you an honest answer, it would probably stem from me needing to prove to other people that I was capable of doing it. I know that sounds like a silly reason.
Probably the most common motivation, I suspect.
But it really, that is an honest and frank answer, is that I was doing it to prove something. Did I have and I reflect on this now, did I have a this overwhelming motivation to join the army and become an SAS operator? Well, if I give you an honest answer, no, I didn't. I developed that motivation when I was in the army because I've always wanted to be the best, right? That's, I've always focused on achieving the highest that I could. And I looked at it, and that was the highest thing you could become at that time. And I thought, well, I want to do that. And so, that's why I did it. Yeah.
What's it like leading in the SAS? Because I would imagine it's full of men. Is it men only?
Well, there are women in support roles as well, but yes, it's a male-dominated unit.
They'll be highly driven, highly competitive, highly focused. I imagine if the odd difficult personality, alpha males. There you go. Yeah. What's it like leading that group of people?
Look, it's challenging. And this comes back down to my principles of leadership, right? There's two very important things that you need to learn when you lead people like that. The first thing is they don't want a friend. They want a leader, right? Because leaders in that unit come and go. And so they really want someone who's going to look after their interests. Because in the bigger picture, I've got their lives in my hands, and the decisions that I make can potentially be catastrophic. And so they want someone that is capable, and they don't want someone that is going to be their friend, right? And so there's two very important aspects to this. Is that the first one is you need to gain their trust and respect. That is the first thing, because when you gain their trust and respect, then you've got their loyalty. So that has always been a very, very strong principle of mine in leading, is gaining trust and respect. And the other one is empowerment, right? Is that as a leader, especially in that type of environment, there's no way that you can know how to do everything, right? And if you do think you can do that, well, you're a fucking dangerous person, right?
Yeah, and hasn't that been proven so many times?
So many times. Yeah. And so I talk about this thing about empowering my subordinates, right? So I empower them to challenge my decisions, respectful, intelligent conflict, right? That breeds positive change, right? And I also empowered them to make their own decisions. Why? Because they were just as capable, and in some circumstances better than I was. Better skills, some of them a lot smarter, right? And so why not harness and use that and empower people to make those decisions? Because when you're in very tough and sticky situations and you empower people to make decisions, then that decision-making cycle becomes a lot quicker, and it actually becomes easier for a leader, because and what you then are saying is saying, I value you so much that I am going to allow you to make these decisions on my behalf. And then you find that creates this environment where they will do absolutely anything for you. But there's one very, very important aspect to that, is that accountability as a leader. Okay,
can I ask you about that?
Because just because you make someone, you empower them with decisions, you're not handing over authority. You're not giving them this. Okay, this is the task. I'm allowing you to make the decision. If you stuff it up, right, then it's your fault. No.
No, the buck still stops with you.
The buck still stops with the leader, right? And that's a very important distinction that I think gets lost.
Did you have to learn that, or is that something that you had thought through, or you saw?
No, I had to learn that, and you learn that. I think I learned that as more of a junior officer, at times where no doubt I would have passed the buck at some point, and then learn a very valuable lesson about how I would lose trust and respect. If you cannot stand behind your guys and your girls and be accountable for their decisions, because in reality you've told them to go to do the task, you've given them the resources, you've told them how long it needs to be done, when it needs to be completed by. So you've given them all these things. And then you can't assume away accountability. So when you stand behind them, you empower them to make decisions, and then they know that you are going to stand up and say, you know what, I got that wrong as well. If it does go wrong, then again, they're so much more motivated to work.
What I find intriguing about that, Matt, is what we see in the movies about military style leadership, not what you've just described. Yeah, a number of years ago, I did an MBA at the University of New England, and the Australian military do a lot of their MBAs there, and I got to meet a lot of the captains, and I was always very impressed with their explanations of how they lead, which is very similar to what you've just said. Is that an Australia phenomena, or is that a military-wide phenomena? What do you think?
I think it would like to be a bit of both. I know that's probably not the best answer, but I like to think that as Australians, we are fairly empathetic type people, and we'd like to see the good, and so that having that empathy in leadership then opens your mind up to being able to be, one, being more approachable, and two, rather than being an authoritative leader, you're a leader that encourages, that allows discussion.
You were successful there because later you were asked to take on the role of in intelligence, which is a very different style of leadership. How did you adapt to that?
Look, yes, it's more analytical. Look, I had an amazing time. I got trained by some of the best of the best, not just in here, but in a bit overseas as well. So it was an absolutely amazing opportunity for me. Does it change the way I led? No, it didn't, because I lead by a number of principles, and I've spoken about the first one about embracing failure. And when you learn to embrace failure, then you continually improve both as an individual and professionally, right? And you enter that continuous improvement cycle. There's a couple of things you need to though. You need to be flexible when you embrace failure, because you need to be amenable to change. Because when you train to failure, or something fails, obviously it's not working, so you can't do the same thing over and over again, because that's the definition of stupidity, right? The other thing is the other aspect of that failure piece is accountability, and we've talked about that already. The third one we kind of touched on is empathy, right? And I like to term it empathy without agreement, right? I don't need to have to agree with why you made that decision, right? I need to be empathetic as to perhaps what the influences were behind you making that decision, right? So that's what I call empathy without agreement. I think having those three things really helps you in the failure piece. The other one, the other pillar is purpose, right? You need to have a purpose for yourself. You need to have established a purpose for your team, right? And when you establish a purpose for the team, when a team or individuals within that team thinks that what they're doing is in support of something much higher than themselves, then they're going to be more motivated to achieve what you've asked them to achieve. Yeah. And we've touched on trust and respect, because trust and respect builds loyalty. The one that we haven't really touched on is circle of influence, right? You as a leader, now circle of influence can be positive and can be negative, right? The circle of influence can be negative within. You can have outside influences that are negative as well. But it's your job as the leader to maintain a positive circle of influence, right? And the last one is empowerment. And we touched on that. You've got to empower your people to make decisions, and you've got to empower them to challenge you as a leader as well. So they're the principles that I've kind of led by. And regardless of the environment that you're in, I think if you follow those types of principles, then
They're
it
universal.
doesn't matter. It's universal. Yeah, that's what I found anyway.
Just a quick break. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hope you are too. What I've been doing with these episodes is a couple of days after I record the conversation, I sit down, grab my ideas, and I put together my reflections on the conversation and what I've learned from them and what kind of sense am I making from them. That's called my reflections episode. I also try an experiment to actually apply what I've got from the conversation. You can listen to that in an episode. You can also download a simple handout on don'tlettheoldmanin.com/reflections to help you do the same. Back to the conversation. Can I go back to where it all started? Like you had 16 years in the military,
Yes,
I think it is, and clearly achieved a phenomenal amount and were very successful. A lot of people join the military for a range of reasons, and I suspect most of them are not purpose-led.
Yeah.
Why did you join the military? Because you have said in the past you were running away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family, so to speak. My father was an alcoholic, and he used to beat my mum up, and so we were rescued from that situation by my uncles, and I went and lived with my grandparents. My mum and I went and lived with my grandparents for a certain period of time, and obviously that became a little bit untenable for my mum. She needed her own space and that types of thing, so we moved out. And I had a brother. He was 6 years older than me. He had seen a lot more than I had with the alcoholism and the violence in the home between my father and my mother. And I think that affected him a lot more. And so from a very early age, he turned to drugs and crime. And I can remember being woken up in the middle of the night by my mum often to go searching for my brother, because he'd run away. Where was he? More often than not, he'd be brought back by the cops. And for a long period of time, the cops were actually father figures in my life, right? They would come around. It was a little bit different back then. They would come around and actually give him a little bit of a hiding if he wasn't doing the right thing.
That wasn't allowed today, is it?
That would not be allowed today. And so...
And what were they doing for you?
I suppose just that trying to influence my decision making.
Okay.
Don't be like your brother. Just those little chats. So my mum remarried, and unfortunately didn't break the cycle. My stepfather had a drinking problem, and he was violent towards my mum and cheated on my mum. And now I was old enough to see this was happening.
Yeah. How old are you about then?
They got together when I was about 11, and so got married when I was about 13.
So your early teenager years, you were now alert to all this.
Yes, now very much alert to it. And during this period of time, my brother is completely off the rails. He's in and out of juvenile centres. He's now in and out of prison, right? And so there was now violence. There was a lot of yelling in the house. At one instance, my mum and my stepfather got into a fight, and he'd been drinking, and he was ironing her shirt, and they were having a fight, and then he punched her to the ground and went to burn her with a hot iron, right? And so I stepped in and I grabbed the nearest thing I could, and I grabbed a rolling pin out of the drawer, and I went after him, and he wanted to go me, like he was going to have a go back at me. So my mum got in the way, and we ended up getting the house. Police came, he got arrested, spent the night in the lockup, but she took him back, right? And so there was this continuation of a lot of screaming and more violence in the house. Turns out my stepfather was already cheating on my mother, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And so I knew from a very young age that I needed to get out of there. I needed to get. I didn't want to end up like my brother. Yeah. I didn't want to end up like any of the male figures in my life. So I looked online and looked up the most expensive boarding school in Sydney. Now, I wanted it to be the most expensive because I wanted him to pay.
He had money. He's going to pay for something no matter what.
I was very great. Look, it's hard for me because I look back and go, if I didn't have that opportunity, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today.
You might be in jail.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very, very grateful for that, but it's torn because of what I had to experience. So I ended up going to St. Joseph's College in Hunters Hill, and it honestly saved my life. But then when I finished school, I'd gotten out and was tried to go to uni, but I was living at home again, right? And nothing had changed. There was a lot of fighting. Both were drinking. Both would deny they're alcoholics, right?
Yeah.
There's a drinking problem. If you're fighting that much and there's alcohol involved, there's a drinking problem.
Denial's not a healthy start.
And there was still violence going on behind closed doors, which I could hear. And but I was bigger now, right? Yeah. So there's no way he wasn't going to take it. He wasn't going to do it, and he wasn't going to take me on.
For those who don't know, Joey's is famous for being a rugby school, so you're taught to be strong pretty early.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, from the outside, everything looked perfect.
Yeah.
He would come and watch the football and be chummy with me after the games. He would always come and watch me play rugby and all of this. So everything from the outside looked great, but on the inside, things were a much
And as you know, alcoholism is very manipulative. So it's easy to put on a facade.
Yeah, definitely.
So the protection of a boarding school, you obviously thrived in.
Loved it.
You went looking for something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when I was now going to uni, I was actually doing medical science. I got in. I did really, really well at school, right? In that environment, that structured environment, I really enjoyed that. And but now living at home again, like I discussed, it was just untenable, and I knew I had to get out of there again. So I thought, fuck, how am I going to get out of here? I'll join the army. There's nothing they can do. So I literally went and signed up and went and joined. Yeah.
So like I met a lot of people at that age. It's not a purpose-led decision. It's escaping from decision.
Yeah. It was an escaping from that type of environment. Yeah.
There's a book called Jarhead.
Yeah.
Written by a U.S. military guy after Gulf War, the second Gulf War.
Yeah.
Where he talks about how damaged young men often make the best soldiers because they're familiar with chaos, they're familiar with discomfort, and they get very comfortable with it. And the military, doesn't break them because they've arrived there with a fair degree of brokenness, I suppose if you want to call it that way, and therefore the military just channels that in a very productive sense.
Yeah.
When you look back now, do you think your experience help channel you into the right sense of the military?
I think it does. Like, my story's not unique.
No, it's quite a common story.
And it is definitely a common story amongst guys within the unit. Not just that, but guys that I've kind of really congregated towards. I've just reinvigorated a relationship with a guy that I went to school with, and he lives in the Currumbin Valley, and he's got this most amazing home gym, right? And he calls it Iron Mountain. And I was there a couple of weeks ago training with him. And it's funny, and every single guy within that, that comes and trains in the gym, the part of his little crew, has got a shit father. And then we laugh about that. We go, but all of us are the complete opposite. Right, we're the complete opposite because we've seen what not to do, and instead of all of us have broken the cycle. But in breaking the cycle, it's taught us valuable lessons. It's taught us resilience. Yeah. So in another aspect, I've got to be grateful for that. That maybe that if I didn't have that volatility at home, that perhaps today I wouldn't be as successful as I have been.
I think that point you make about you're grateful for it. You can see how it actually has helped you, even though the process is crap when you're in it.
Yeah.
But if you're able to come out the other side, like I've always feel, if you're humbled enough on the other side of an event, you're going to be a far better person, right?
Definitely.
And humbled means you've got to be grateful for what happened.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not surprised to hear you say that, but it's a really good piece.
Yeah.
So you had 16 years in the military, then you chose to leave, and you've done what I think is an extraordinary and unique story, which is why I was keen to have you here. But before we jump there, what was it like leaving the military? Because that's a huge identity.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I wrongly thought that my identity wasn't attached to my military service, and I quickly found out that I was institutionalized because I'd been to boarding school as well. So it's not just the military. There was
Structures
boarding
around
school,
you.
structures around me everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And so I arrogantly, I'll say arrogantly, not confidently. I arrogantly thought that I could leave all of that behind and move on with the new aspect of my life. And I quickly found out that no, I was institutionalized. My identity was firmly entrenched with my military service as well. And so yeah, things did not go to plan when I got out. That's for sure.
I want to jump to where you are now, but
Yeah.
let's talk about the chasm in
Yeah.
between leaving arrogantly and assuming this is going to be easy, and then realizing actually no, that wasn't.
Yeah. Look, I think a lot of military people when they get out, I don't know whether it's the right way to say it, but overestimate or overvalue their leadership skills in the civilian world. We have a lot of transferable skills, right? And Australians love military people. But when it comes to the workforce, I don't know whether they're fully appreciative of those leadership skills and how they can properly be integrated into their civilian workforce. A lot of the times, I think military people, when they get out, they come across as very direct and a bit gruff. That's a real problem, right? So I thought coming out that I would walk into a job anywhere. And at the same time, I thought, you know what? I can set up a business. And I looked at we were looking at different industries, and the cybersecurity industry was a growing industry. And I thought, you know, I can make some money here in this industry. And so we set this business up. And it failed. It failed miserably because, one, I hadn't aligned a purpose behind the business, both from an individual and the business, like what the business purpose was going to be. And so that failed miserably, right? And I was pretty down about that because, yes, while I talk about in embracing failure, everything that I'd kind of set up or gone to achieve in the army, I had achieved it. Yes, you have small failures along the way and you learn from that, but you don't have these monumental failures, right?
Well, you're not able to, are you?
Yeah, that's right. And so that hit me for six a bit. And so then I went and got a job working in and I think I applied for about, I reckon it would have been about 30 or 40 jobs, and you never get called back. And you sit there as you got your resume in your front of where you think your resume looks perfect. Your wife tells you your resume looks amazing. Your family tells you your resume looks amazing. But what the fuck? There's no one. I don't know what it is. If they see the military and they can't translate what I'd written down there, or I'd written it poorly, or whatever.
Let's just pause for a second. If you've made it this far, it must mean you're enjoying the show. We want to keep bringing you awesome conversations, but algorithms are like needy toddlers. They demand constant validation. So if you're liking this, please hit the like button, the follow button, the subscribe button, whatever button. It helps us land more great guests to keep entertaining you. And if you're listening to this on an audio podcast app, come over and watch us on YouTube. I promise we're reasonably photogenic. Back to the show.
It was lucky I'd actually got an offer of a job to work for CNN as their one of their chief security officers in Hong Kong. And I'm really lucky I did not accept it, because then COVID happened, right? And we would have been stuck in Hong Kong with COVID. Anyway, so at the time I also got this a job offer from an accounting firm here in Australia, BDO, that wanted me to come on as a manager in their cybersecurity department. And so I did that, right? And yeah, look, the cybersecurity thing was this far-fetched idea that it was a growing industry. I could make some money in this industry. And then again, I quickly found out I'm not a financially motivated person whatsoever. Right. And again, I wasn't that skilled at cybersecurity. I can remember sitting in meetings. And
I could say at that time it didn't make a difference.
No, I was sitting in meetings and I could be Googling under my desk what the hell they were talking about, right?
Yeah.
But as smart individuals, you can read something and you can regurgitate that type of thing. But that all came crashing down. And it came crashing down because there was a lot of things that I hadn't dealt with from my childhood. There were some things that I hadn't really dealt with from my military service. And then when I didn't have a purpose in life, I'm just kind of plodding along. Everything kind of all came crashing down. And in late 2019, I had a pretty massive breakdown.
Tell us more about that.
Oh, it's still, it's raw because I've brought up with my family through at the time, so I became very internalized within myself, unmotivated, not really wanting to do anything with the family and hang out with the family. I started drinking a lot more. I put a lot of weight on, because I didn't have that purpose in life. It was my wife that got me out of it, right? And she's like, because she's been so supportive for everything that I've done over my entire career. She's always put herself second. To have her by my side has been absolutely the greatest gift ever. But it allowed me then to, again, make a decision for myself. Again, she's so selfless, right?
Got back to you. Yeah.
And
you made I think, a really interesting decision. That is, most people choose a career that we think we should do, and you thought you should do cybersecurity or whatever else.
Yeah.
And then
that was the stupidest thing. I don't know what.
If we had a longer podcast, I'd tell you about my stupid ones too. But eventually, for a lot of us, if we listen hard enough, our heart, our soul keeps banging.
Yeah.
Our former guest here said, God has got a hammer. If you don't listen, he just gets a bigger hammer until you eventually listen.
Yeah, that's right.
You listened and you heard something completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Which is nursing.
Yeah. To give a little bit of context where my purpose in life came from, when I briefly spoke about my brother was in and out of prison most of his adult life. We're talking about armed robbery, attempted murder. He actually took my parents hostage one night, and my stepfather, instead of trying to placate the situation, de-escalate the situation, trying to meet my brother's aggression with his aggression, and my brother stabbed him right in the chest, right? And so my brother was actually arrested that night for attempted murder, and he actually got downgraded to assault, grievous bodily harm, right? And so he actually got sent to prison. He'd already had warrants out for his arrest, and he got sent to prison for a 10-year stint. He got sentenced to 10 years. I actually had this amazing relationship with my prison brother, right? I was very scared of my street brother, but I would go and visit him in prison every weekend, right, whenever I could.
What was the difference in the two? I'm imagining one is less aggressive.
I think it was that structure.
Yeah.
I think he liked he actually liked me. He liked the structure, right? Yeah. But on the outside, he had all these influences, the circle of influence that I talk about. He had all these negative influences that were trying to get him to do things. And he had some mental health issues, and I'm sure he had those mental health issues from the trauma that he experienced as a child as well, right? And so now, I had joined the army, and my brother was still in prison. And then I got to go to RMC and become an officer, right? And so when I was finished RMC, it just so happened to coincide with my brother getting out of prison, right? Now, if you want to know what stupid is, you look it up in the dictionary. There'll be a picture of me staring right back at you. Stupid is inviting your violent brother who's just spent the better part of 10 years in maximum security prison for a night out, right? That didn't end well. That did not end well. He turned on me, and he tried to attack me with a broken bottle, and he said he wanted to kill me. No, I don't know why. We'd been drinking. He just changed. I don't know whether he'd seen how my life had become. There was some jealousy there. I don't know, right? Anyway, so I ran. I legged it, and he was running after me. We ran around this corner, And I ran around this corner, and there was this cop just sitting on the end of his bonnet of his car eating a McDonald's. And he saw me, and he saw the fear of God in my eyes, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, as soon as I turned back around, my brother came running around the corner at that time. By this time, he had dropped the bottle. And I told him, he's a violent criminal. He's just been out of prison. He's trying to kill me. He wants to kill me, right? And he's got form. I actually thought he really wanted to kill me because he's got form for doing it, right? And so the cops arrested him, put him in handcuffs, and checked his details. And then, sure enough, it came back. What I was saying was correct. And they said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I think he's got to go. He's got to go back. You got to arrest him. You got to take him inside." But he was on parole, right? So that meant if you get arrested, he's going back to the big house. And so I never forget that moment. That I've never seen. He turned into a blubbering mess as they were leading him back into that paddy wagon, right?
Is he still with us?
No, that was the last time I saw him. He died of a drug overdose after that.
Sorry to hear that.
So. And I still, like, as you can see, it still affects me, right? For many years, I had to live with that decision that I'd sent my brother back to prison. It ultimately led to his death, right? So that was a big thing on my shoulders that I carried for a long, long time. And so there's a lot of this stuff, and getting back to your question, there was a lot of this stuff that I hadn't dealt with as a child that had happened. And
this came on top of it.
And there was the things that I've been through in the military. I was now hyper vigilant. I found it very hard to be in public places. I still, even today, when we walk into a restaurant, my kids know where I need to sit in that restaurant, right? They're like, "That's no, Dad,
so you want to see your way out."
Yeah. So there's still that little bit of a carryover. I've worked on that, but yeah, that's I suppose getting back to your question is that everything imploded because of all these things that I really hadn't dealt with, and so when that breakdown came, it came in and it hit me quite hard, and so my wife got me out of it. Thought, because when I'd finished school, I'd started medical science. The aim was to go into the health field, right? Yeah. But I couldn't. I had to go and join the military to escape something. And
you know what's extraordinary about that huge story from a life cycle point of view is most of us tend to know relatively early in our lives what kind of work we want to do. Medical science is where you want it. And we're going to come to your extraordinary career now and indeed where it's going to next. Yet you just need a structure at the time because going into medical science would not have given you structure.
No.
So you need a structure. No. But once you come out of the structure need, you're able to revisit that. Hold on. Yeah. I have always wanted to be in medical science. Yeah. And through my coaching career, I have seen so many people 40, 45, 50 go, "I always wanted to do X." Yeah. And here I am spending 20 years doing Y for a range of different reasons, and it's been useful, etc. But I never wanted to do Y. Yeah. And in your case, Y really helped you, right? And I really think this whole podcast is designed around this idea of if we want to reinvent ourselves, midlife is a great time to do it.
Yeah. And do you advise, like when people they say they want to do X, and you see them in a job and they're unmotivated, do you try and convince them then to go down
I never
that
try to convince
path?
anybody of anything, but what I try to do is help people understand, why are you not motivated? Yeah. What is it about what you're doing now that's, if it was useful for you, it no longer is. Yeah. What's changed? Yeah.
And do you find, is there a common denominator as to
There's a range of patterns. I mean, everyone's unique, but it's a range of patterns that are common. So one pattern is people often choose their careers because their parents suggested, or someone in a really important role suggested, my dad was a doctor, I'm good at school, I should be a doctor, or something like that. So that's a very, very common pattern. And sometimes that can work out, but usually doesn't. Yeah. If that's the prime motivator, that won't sustain you over time. Yeah. But that's a very common one. Yeah. A second one is, for many folks, you're 18, you take the first job you can because that's your only choice. Yep. And then over 10 or 15 years, you go, well, I'm kind of stuck in here. And 20 years later, you kind of go, I'm really stuck in here and I don't want to do this. So that's a very, very common pattern. A third common pattern is people go into careers that are financially lucrative.
Yeah.
And after about age 45 or 50, you go, I've ticked every single thing I can buy. Yeah. And I'm not motivated by this. Yeah. There's got to be something else.
Yeah, right.
And the status linked with high-paying careers is often hard to let go.
Yeah.
Or for many of us, there is the status of I'm not going through my second divorce and I've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
And therefore I should keep doing what I'm doing. But I'm now doing it to pay bills, not because of the reason I originally do it. Right?
Yeah, right.
So there's a range of patterns.
Yep.
But if you listen hard enough, I think most of us get signals earlier in our life as to what truly calls us. And it may not be exactly what you end up doing, but it's in a similar direction, right? You had insight in high school that medical science attracted you. You're probably good at biology, probably good at physics, maybe maths, etc. But you needed security. Yeah. That made sense, right? Medical science will not give you security or structure. No. I'll give you some structure, but not a lot. But you came back out the other side. You went through a tough period. Yep. And as I said earlier on, if you were able to come out of a tough period humbled, as in you're able to stand on your own 2 feet, but you have also know, okay, I've had to learn stuff. Yeah. And I'm on the other side of learning it. You can make great choices.
You can.
And you have.
I agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
So you went into emergency, well, you trained to be a nurse during COVID.
Yes.
And now you work in emergency in A&E.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of those things where I look and go, geez, I actually wish I did this straight out of school. It's one of those jobs. I love it, you know. And because I've got this really, my purpose, you know, from what I went through, there's a couple of things. The first one is I never wanted to turn out like any of the male figures in my life. That was a number one, right? So, and whatever I did and whatever I choose to do, it had to be in support of helping other people. I really enjoy helping other people. And then the third part of my purpose is that I need to pursue excellence in doing it, right? I always still want to achieve, and I still that innate want in me to be the best of the best, right? And so when I came and looked at nursing, I looked at the range of careers in nursing. And as you know, as a nurse, there's so many you could do, right? ICU nursing was actually one of them because, you know, the specialist and how close you need to be with people. And you really are there at the pointy end of the stick when you're looking at ICU nursing and ED nursing, right? But ED nursing got me because of the organised chaos. The environment that I came from. And that's what I kind of missed. Yeah. If you ask me today, do I miss being in the regiment, the SAS, because of the excitement? I don't, because I do get that excitement working in an ED department. What do I miss? Yeah, I miss being in a Black Hawk helicopter and flying in and doing an assault on a compound and those types of things. Yeah, of course, you do. You miss... there's that part of you that kind of, that'd be cool to do that again. But then you quickly recover and you're sitting at the dinner table with your wife and your 2 kids, and you're like, geez, I'm so grateful for what I've been able to make with her, and that I can sit down and share a meal with them whenever I want now, right? So...
what was it like going back to being a beginner again? Because you left the military at the ultimate, like you'd achieved everything you could possibly achieve. Yeah. And here you are beginning.
Look, I'm not going to say it was easy because, and you look at some people and they, especially the way they speak down to you as like when you're a student, and there's that voice in the back of your head that goes, you've got no fucking idea what
That's right. If you saw what I've seen.
Yeah. And so there is that.
I imagine physically, Matt, people don't talk down to you that often. Like you're a big guy,
true,
right?
True, but no, you'd be surprised. Be surprised. Yeah. So there is that. You walk away from some situations going, oh my God, you just got no idea. But I'd like to think I'm a very confident person, right? But I like to think I am a pretty humble person, and I enjoy learning new things, and I could see the goal, right? Yes, I'm a student again, and I'm at the bottom of the barrel, but I can see the goal, and I think that comes with a lot of life experience. You're at university with teenage girls, mostly teenage girls. Like there was not that many guys doing the course, and a range of girls that are from 17 right up to more mature age as well. Like I knew what the goal was for me, and so it was easy to think to myself, well, there's going to be a point where I'm going to be able to draw on my experience when I'm in the ED department, and people are going to see that, and they will respect it, and they will respect me a lot more. So it was a waiting game. Yeah.
Some listeners may know this, but not everyone may know this. I was an ICU nurse originally, which
Yep.
ICU, you know. And when I went to nurse college in Ireland, the ratio was me and Jerry, my mate Jerry, and 18 girls. It was a 1 to 10 ratio.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a good ratio.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the reason to join nursing. It was a good ratio.
Yeah. That's right.
Emergency nursing has its own rhythm, and as you said, organized chaos. There's some days, like I remember when I did that long time ago, Saturday mornings typically were a routine, or Thursday mornings actually, where people who came in for, like, say, leg ulcer bandage repairs type thing, you come into casualty for a quick repair. But then there's the chaos that can happen at any minute, which I would imagine would appeal to your sense of what you like.
Yeah.
How does that compare to, say, the organized chaos of military? Is it similar? Is it similar rhythms?
It is. You'd be very surprised that it is, right? Especially in the ED department, there's a lot of processes. There's a lot of standing operating procedures that you need to follow when you're doing certain things. Like whenever you're working, say, in a resus environment, and a patient comes in and they need to be tubed, right? They need an airway put in. There's checklists that need to be run through. There's full procedures. There's people that are allotted to teams, to different positions. There's a structure and a hierarchical structure. There's a team leader, doctor, there's a team leader nurse, and they're issuing orders. So it is actually, believe it or not, it's like a military. When you get into those situations and you've got a very, very critical person that's coming in, or that is in, and you're looking after them, it's run with military precision. Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned resilience earlier on, in terms of how, on the other side of your experiences, you feel a lot more resilient, and you and your friends are talking about the benefits of the parenting experience you had, as you are more resilient.
Yeah. Do
you find working in ED, the resilience that you've learned through the military or through your child experience kicks in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two aspects for that. There's my childhood resilience kicks in. We get a lot of mental health patients. And I would say it's probably getting worse. And there's times when these mental health patients are very aggressive. They're very hard to deal with. I find that I can communicate with them a lot better than a lot of other nurses can, because I've had this lived experience of having to live with someone that's a drug addict. There's been instances, but where my mum and I have come home and the TV's gone and the VCR's gone, and of course my brother didn't know anything about it, but he's taken it and sold it for drugs, right? But that lived experience has really helped me in the ED be able to communicate and connect with a lot of these with mental health patients that are experiencing a lot of the things that my brother did. Why? Because I can show honest empathy, and it's empathy without agreement. I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I can empathize with how you got there, right? And I think when you can empathize with someone's position, you communicate. The way you communicate with them is a lot more. It's a lot more. I suppose genuine. That's what I'm looking for. It's a lot more genuine.
What's your sense of? Like, I love what you said. Empathy without agreement, is it?
Yeah, empathy without agreement. Yeah.
Because to me, what I hear you saying that is, I'm not judging you.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me your story. I can understand your story. I can appreciate your story. I don't have to agree with your story.
Yep.
but I'm not judging you because of your story.
Yeah.
And the lack of judgment means empathy is possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is that right?
It's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it'll then allows you to challenge once you build that rapport, right? And this is what I learned when I probably one of the best lessons I learned when I crossed over and I started working in the intelligence field, right? I got taught we were in this lesson and a lot of your this lesson was about how you get someone to do something without them actually realizing what they're doing, right? It's a manipulation. It's how do you manipulate people? It's a strong word. It's how do you influence people is probably the better way to put it, right? How do you influence someone? You've got to build rapport with people before you can influence them to do something. So I call it a rapport bucket. And I learned this from the instructor. You've got a bucket, right? And you ask questions about people and you give information about yourself. When you give information about yourself, you're filling up that rapport bucket. But then every time I ask you a question about yourself, specifically if you're a closed off individual, then you empty that rapport bucket. So then you've got to fill the rapport bucket up again. So you've got to give some more information about yourself. You've got to, you talk in roundabout terms rather than direct questions, and you fill that rapport bucket up. And when you fill that rapport bucket up to the top, then you've built this relationship with the individual, right? And therefore you can influence them a lot better. And I use that lesson that I learned within the military about building up rapport with individuals to influence them about their health and getting them to do things that potentially has been very hard for others to get to do. So yeah.
What's it like coming from a hyper male oriented platoon or regiment you're in to a hospital and nursing is hyper female oriented, but the hospital structure by nature will have a lot more women working in it than men. What's that like in terms of moving those two distinctly different environments for you? Because you're a very masculine guy, right? So coming into an environment that's not that. What's that like?
I think going into that ED department where I work is that I had gained immediate respect because of the way I work and the way I can communicate with people, and that I was willing to learn. So I had gained respect quite early on in my career in that department for that reason. In regards to the whole male and female thing, I don't think about it like that. I never really have. It's skill. It's skill. I don't care whether you're male or female. If you're a good leader and you're a good worker and you show capability, then it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what sex you are, shouldn't matter what religion you are, shouldn't matter what race you are, right? Shouldn't matter what your sexual orientation is or anything like that. If you are capable and you're good at your job, then that never really worried me. Like some of the best leaders I've ever seen are actually female senior nurses that I work with, right? I actually really look up to them and go, you are a very experienced individual and you are a very good leader. And I've seen it in, really chaotic situations, how there's this calmness, absolute calmness about them. And I've brought that aspect, I suppose, in with me. What being in the SAS has taught me is to remain calm in really chaotic situations. Is that yes, now I can remain calm in very chaotic situations.
It's interesting you say that. Bit like yourself, I've had a range of different careers. But one of my careers is spending 5 years working in recruitment and headhunting, specifically for the medical pharmaceutical industry, as in the commercial side of the industry. And when I was tasked to look for emerging but not yet qualified potential sales leaders or marketing leaders who hopefully had clinical backgrounds but not necessarily, I would always go straight looking for ICU nurse managers, coronary care nurse managers, or A&E nurse managers, because what you've just said. They were invariably the calmest. They're able to react under pressure very quickly. They invariably held their heads very, very quickly. They generally were able to lead teams because they had to, and because of the way those three units work and shift work works, you invariably had different people on your shifts every single day. So you had to learn to lead different people at different times.
Definitely.
And they invariably turn out to be the best and most successful commercial leaders in the pharmaceutical and medical industries.
I definitely agree with that, because if you think about leadership, when you look at it, leadership in the military is very one-dimensional. Why? Because you're leading the same type of person.
Yes.
Right?
And they're with you the whole time.
Yeah. And but when you're say in a nursing environment, there is a plethora of different personalities, right? And so it takes a greater amount of skill to lead people across various personalities than it does that people are all focused and, towards the same idea. Yeah.
Can I jump to fatherhood for a second?
Yep.
Just changing the topic. You said that you and your mates often laugh about the experience you had.
Yeah.
But it's allowed you to consciously choose to do something different. You have teenage girls.
Yep.
How do you think about being a father, and a father who's made different choices, who's changed careers, etc.? How does that impact you as a father?
I think it's been a positive influence on my girls, because they've seen me go from the military and doing what I did in the military to now coming out of the military, having a period of being shit, and then recovering from that, and then now progressing into something that I love. Again, I think the power of that, they see that how happy you can be when you do something that you really, really enjoy. My wife and I are very, very open with our kids. We discuss everything with them. We include them in the decisions. Again, we're their parents. We're my wife and I are not there to be their friends. We are their friends, of course.
But that's not your prime role.
That's not our prime role. And we set very strong boundaries for our kids. And don't get me wrong, sometimes those boundaries don't hold and we give in pretty quick, like most parents do. Like, we were laughing about it the other day. My daughter was in the car with her friend and she spoke to me really rudely. And I said, "That's it. Give me your phone. You've lost your phone for 24 hours. Because that's a big thing at the 14-year-old losing her phone. And it's a brand new phone too, right? And then she gets out of the car and she plays me like a fiddle. She goes, "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry I spoke to you like that. It's never going to happen again. Can I have my phone back?" And I was like, there's the phone. All right, you can have the phone back, right? And my eldest daughter, she was there. She looks and she goes, "You need to parent better." She goes, "That wouldn't have happened to me." And I said, "Bullshit. That happens all the time, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You've experienced that is actually as well." And then she walked away and she goes, "No, you guys need to be better parents. You need to discipline her more."
Parent up.
Yeah, parent up. But so we're my wife and I are very, very close with our kids. We set strong boundaries. But I think getting back to your question is they've seen me excel in these careers, and the ones that I've really enjoyed doing, they've seen how happy I am. So it's really made them, now that one of them is in year 12 and going out, she's really trying to find something that she's gonna love and really enjoy. And I think that's probably my influence and my wife's influence as well. Yeah, very much so. More my wife. My wife's done the majority of the heavy lifting by far.
Do you ever talk to your former military colleagues who come out and are maybe struggling to find purpose or struggling to reorient?
Yeah.
And if so, what do you tell them? Because the advice will apply to everybody, irrespective of where they come from.
It does. And I've got a group of guys that we talk on a regular basis, right? And some of them have struggled a lot more than others. And I have had conversations with them about purpose, and I feel that it always comes back down to purpose. You've got to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And if you can't honestly internalize why you're doing something, then the motivation to want to be happy doing it is never going to be there. So I really do push that point, is that you need to find purpose in what you're doing, and it needs to align with your moral compass. It needs to align with your family values. And yeah, you need to find that purpose to be happy.
There's a maxim that comes out of Viktor Frankl's book, In Search of Man's Search for Meaning, where he says, purpose is not created, you discover purpose.
Yeah.
And I actually agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
On our website, where we talk about 8 different pillars of positive aging, purpose is last.
Yeah.
Because my experience is people don't start with a, road to Damascus. Oh my God, I mean, and going through experiences like trying cybersecurity, trying something else, and realizing, oh, yeah, I could make money here, but actually I'm not enjoying this. That's a really important part of the process.
Well, you certainly don't become a nurse to make money, do you? Right.
I was going to ask you about that. There's be changing your income when you do that.
Yeah. You certainly don't become a nurse to make money. And my wife's a social worker as well. But my wife is a genius. We don't own investment properties. What we do is we move into a house. She sees the value and has these ideas and turns these ideas into great things, and then we end up selling it and moving on, and that's kind of how we've been able to financially support ourselves as well, because she's a social worker. You don't do social work to earn money either. So she's a very special breed of woman. Not only has been so supportive for me and have always put me and the kids first before herself, but she is a genius when it comes to seeing the value in property and turning it into something. And that is how we've actually been able to survive. And I'm very proud to say that we are mortgage free at the age of 43 because of her. So, yeah.
The whole notion of the millionaire next door is doing just what you just said. Yeah. Okay, so you're in your mid-40s. You've come out of a very physical and fitness-oriented career. Yep. You're now in a career that's less demanding physically, albeit you're on your feet every day, etc. What are you doing to stay fit?
It's routine and consistency. They are the two most important things you need to stay fit, right? Is routine and consistency. And I'm consistent about I go to the gym, I lift weights. That is what I do. I hate doing cardio. The thing is, when people want to change their health, right, and they want to get into fitness, and what people do is they change too many things at once, right? And when you change too many things at once, you're going to fail. Right, so you change one thing at a time. You build a routine around that one thing, then you move to the next thing, and you build a routine around that, and then before you know it, you've got this routine built around about 4 or 5 different things, and that's what breeds consistency, right? But whatever you do, again, it comes back down to doing something you enjoy doing, right? I love getting in the gym and throwing tin around. Right, that is what I really enjoy doing.
Are you a morning or nighttime person?
I'm a morning person. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Right. If I'm on shift
every day, or the days you're on early shift?
Every day. So if I'm on a night shift, I obviously can't.
Yeah.
But I will set my alarm to give myself enough time to get to the gym before my next shift.
Which would be like a 7 a.m. start, is it?
Yeah, 7 a.m. So I will, and even when I'm on my off days, I still get up at 4 o'clock and go to the gym, right? Because it's a routine. It's part of my routine.
So your nightlife is exciting then, is it?
No, I don't have it yet. It's like if I've got my philosophy in life now is health, family, and friends, right? If it doesn't fit into one of those things, you can fuck right off. Right, that is my philosophy on life now. So going out drinking, and I hardly drink anymore. I maybe have 1 or 2 drinks here or there in a blue moon. So I've stopped all of that. And I focus on my health. I focus on my family, and those priorities I feel are interchangeable. I've even conditioned my wife now that she knows that when I'm at the gym, she won't call me, and if she does, I know that something's actually really wrong, so I better answer the phone. I feel like I'm a better father, I'm a better person when I'm healthy, and I think that when people realize that you can be an all-round better person when you're healthy, you think clearer, you're more emotionally stable. then you're going to be better in other aspects of your life as well. And that goes down to, to my work aspect as well. I feel that being healthy, not only do I set an example for other people when I'm talking to them about health, but I'm clearer thinker, I'm on my game a lot better. And the same goes when I'm at home.
Does testosterone play a role in your health for you?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I've now been on testosterone replacement therapy for 2 years now. Absolutely changed my life. If you look at the symptoms of low testosterone and you put them against depression, they're exactly the same.
And I think they're often confused, right?
They are.
You get someone will be prescribed antidepressants when in fact that's not the issue.
Well, antidepressants are handed out like lollies. Right. If you go to a doctor, he'll give you an SSRI, but he's reluctant to have a look at your testosterone, your sex hormones, and change those. Yet, their argument is we don't, we're worried about hormones, but SSRIs are high dose hormone therapy.
Yeah.
Right. They're playing with the hormones within your brain, your neurological pathways. There's a much simpler answer to a lot of this is that as men age, even from the age of 30 onwards, our testosterone declines by about 1%, our total testosterone. I won't go into the full science behind total testosterone and free testosterone, but our free testosterone, which is actually, I think, is the more important value, actually declines by 2 to 3% as we age.
Which then leads to andropause over time.
It does, yeah. And that is a real thing. Just like menopause is a huge implication for women, andropause is slower. Yes, it is slower. It's not as volatile, nearly as volatile as what women go through, but there's still the symptomology of low mood, fatigue, unable to shift weight, poor exercise habits, and then you get into the metabolic diseases that come with having all of those, being overweight, not eating properly, not exercising. So yeah, the taking testosterone and getting my testosterone levels back up to where they should be at the higher end. There's no reason why a 40-year-old man can't have the testosterone levels of a 25-year-old man. There's absolutely no scientific reason behind it being that way. We only say that because there's these guidelines that say, men, their testosterone falls as they get over 30, right? But why? Why shouldn't it be up there? Why shouldn't it be at a peak?
It's a body decline, but as you said, you don't need to resort for that. What have been the benefits for you?
So better exercise capacity, change in mood, right? Better mood. So the thing with testosterone is when you have low testosterone, your estrogen levels are out as well, right? And you'll have low estrogen levels because your testosterone is not aromatizing into estrogen. Estrogen is very, very important for a couple of things: sex drive, libido. And it's also incredibly important for mood stabilization, right? So when you have low estrogen levels, your mood is affected. And especially with testosterone plays a really important part on the limbic system within your brain, the emotional control, the ability to take in emotions and deal with those emotions. And if those levels are out, then your ability to deal with emotion and your emotional control is off, right? And then there's also the other aspects, the cardiovascular aspects of having good testosterone. The direct cardiovascular aspects, i.e., it's more pliable for your vasculature becomes more pliable when you've got good testosterone levels, i.e., better oxygen flow because you've got a greater amount of red blood cells. Then the indirect effect is that you're losing weight and you're shifting weight a lot easier. You're putting on lean muscle mass. And when you put on lean muscle mass and you shift that fat away, you're actually increasing your insulin sensitivity. And when you're increasing your insulin sensitivity, your muscles are taking up that glucose and using that glucose more effectively. You've got greater amount of energy. You've got greater exercise.
You can exercise more, you get injured less often, all
exactly.
those things. Yeah, so it's a whole cycle.
Yeah.
This to me feels like a a much bigger topic in conversation.
Yeah,
To get
yeah.
you back another time
Yeah,
for, because
definitely.
it's becoming the whole notion of andropause and TRT, and I think the misunderstood, or at least if it's not misunderstood, it's not understood.
Yep.
Topic of andropause and how it affects men in midlife is becoming more important. So
Yep.
I really want to have that conversation with you
Yep.
another time, because I think that's a whole topic in
Yeah,
itself.
I love that. Yeah.
But I got two final questions for you. I really appreciate you coming on today, because your story is fascinating.
Yep.
Your honesty and openness about all of your experiences is liberating to hear.
Yep.
So I appreciate you telling us that. What do you think would the 75-year-old version of you, if they were here,
Yep.
be asking of you now?
Yep. The 75-year-old version asking of me now, why did I drink so much in the military? Right. I had a lot of fun. Right. But that's why I don't drink now, because like I put alcohol up there with smoking and the effect that drinking has on people's lives, and I've seen it. Yet there was the one thing I kind of regret, right? I saw how negatively alcohol impacted my life when I was younger, with the people I loved in it, but I still made a decision that there's a culture, I suppose, in the military of drinking. There's a big regret that I have allowed my daughters to see me get drunk, and they've joked about it before, and it doesn't happen now. So my 75-year-old would like to sit my 25-year-old person down and say to him, "Don't go down that path. Don't go down that path. Alcohol is not good for you. It draws away from your health. But not only that, you don't want your kids seeing you in those states and then thinking that's okay, and then doing it themselves, because there's a cycle. I think we really need to change the culture of drinking in Australia. That would be my one big thing. Yeah.
Okay. Matt, it's been a pleasure having you here. What would your final words of wisdom be for the listener?
I think you've got to, one, as we've spoken about so many people, you've got to find what you find happy in life, right? And you've got to establish a purpose behind that happiness. If you're not happy with what you're doing, then you need to sit down with your loved ones. You need to have honest and open and frank conversations about what you want to really do in life. And there are ways and means of being able to do those things, and doing it and going out and doing it and changing your focus in life can be so fundamental to improving everything. Yes, you're gonna go through hard times to get there, but there's one little saying, and that that was our regiment motto: "Who dares wins," right? And if you dare to do something, that is going to essentially make you happier. I guarantee you, it will improve your life in the long run. But you just got to step through it. But you got to suck the pain for a little bit before you go and do it.
Well, you lived a life that's daring on many, many levels, but also daring to confront difficult issues and daring to make change your whole life, and you've ended up in a place that you're very happy in and very excited by. You've got a whole new chapter with your longevity clinic about to open up next year, so it's a very exciting place to be. Thank you for daring, and thank you for joining us today.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me on. I've loved your studio, and it's been great to come down and visit Sydney again. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for listening or watching, depending which platform you're accessing this podcast on. I hope you enjoyed it. I really got a lot from that conversation. And I will record a short episode next on what I've learned, my thoughts on the conversation, some reflections. And I'm going to do an experiment based upon what I've learned today. So you'll hear about that in the next episode. If you want a permanent reminder of what we chatted about or some of the key summary points, go to don'tlettheoldman in.com/reflections and download that. In the meantime, don't let the old man in. We'll see you next time.